Hello, welcome to the Xirtus.
What up? Welcome to SYNCTANK. Well, the light is shining through really nicely. That's pretty sweet. How's it going? Paranoid American, Thomas and I just did a really interesting episode yesterday. So you guys can all look forward to seeing that on paranoidamerican.com and his YouTube channel. I hope you guys check that out. Alex, how have you been, bro?
Oh, fine. How about you? Glad to be here.
What do you call it when you when you retrograde? Like, is that what it is? When you progress into retrograde? Because we're pretty much at that point.
You turn retrograde. You station retrograde. That's the word. Station.
See, it feels weird to me because, like, I'm always out there hanging out in retrograde with a sun umbrella, and then all of a sudden, everybody who's been looking at me weird comes outside with umbrellas because they think it's going to rain or something like that.
You must have been born during a retrograde or two.
I feel like that.
I was born during Jupiter retrograde when I was born, and that kind of sucks, actually.
So why?
Well, Jupiter is the planet of good fortune and lots of good stuff, happy times. So if it's retrograde, I guess that just means all bad times.
So, opposite day.
It's been a rough 30-some years.
See, a lot of people I think would like opposite day. Isn't opposite day a good thing?
It used to be fun.
I've got some meme about this somewhere.
No, I do thrive during retrogrades. So.
This isn't really related, but I thought it was funny. This is translated. When I master the verb to be, I won't say anything, but there will be signals. I like that one. It's a bit adorable. Let's go back. Where was it? What if they remade Home Alone, but with an adult Kevin defending his home on Purge Night? Abusive language and swearing are a legacy of slavery, humiliation, disrespect for human dignity. One zone. And of other people. Star Trek is communism. Where's the one I'm looking for? Behold a Woman. No, that one's good though. I like that one. Me and my bros thinking. Just for the job you want. We're getting there. This is a man. Oh yeah, Zeus. Dad, can we stop at McDonald's? Kronos. We have food at home.
And then he eats the kid that was asking for me. Yeah. It gets funnier when you explain it. Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah, sorry.
That's definitely Jupiter retrograde.
That was literally
the featherless biped with the wig on it was a thinker. Like it took me a little bit longer for it to click in, but I liked it. I like the slow burns.
I see advanced philosophy memes. That's what it's there for. It's for the slow burn. We were also talking about Opus Dei, which I thought was probably worth bringing up. So Thomas found out that he had family members that were members of Opus Dei, which are like pre-Vatican II Catholics. So this is also kind of interesting because it's pre-Vatican II Catholics. A lot of people said in the 70s, we want Catholicism to be more chill, so the Vatican II comes out, the Vatican II conference, and there are people then who said, no, we're not stopping praying in Latin and all that. But that's in the 70s. Opus Dei is in the 1928, according to this.
That's the Kubrick's year of birth.
Have you looked at all into Opus Dei? I mean, because they seem pretty interesting. They basically don't trust the Vatican. Is that the deal?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if that's the same impression that I got. My impression from it was that the Vatican's, I mean, they had kicked out Freemasonry, right? So
Yeah.
they decided we're going to do our own little secret society for,
Oh.
just for us extra special, super secret Catholics. And then
Really?
within there, they had, there was a lot of volunteering. I think a lot of it was monetary. Like once you became Opus Dei, your tithing went up significantly, and you basically dedicate. You're always going to donate a certain amount.
Wow.
And then
What's the difference between Opus Dei and Knights of Columbus? I mean,
honestly, I have no idea, man. I found this out after my grandparents both passed because we were looking through their stuff, and then I just realized they're Opus Dei. I would have asked at least my grandpa about it a lot,
for sure.
But it was definitely co-ed. So my grandma and my grandpa were both in it.
Well, there's 100,000 members as of 2018, probably more. So, and Escriva. So it's pretty interesting to get like lots of people in Latin America that are members of Opus Dei. So you think of it more like kind of not a fraternity necessarily because it's co-ed, but sort of it says work of God. So they're kind of doing works. They're supposed to be kind of
it's like when the teachers like, does anyone want to stay after and like do more math? You know what I mean? That's kind of what Opus Dei was to me.
So they have 999 maxims concerning spirituality for people involved in secular affairs. Okay.
But a wood ain't one. No, I wish I had. I wish I knew what it goes in there. 999 maxims, but
So an early critic, Opus Dei found an early critic in the Jesuit superior. So that's also why I was saying that, because I feel like there's a kind of between the Jesuits and Opus Dei. The Jesuits were upset at Opus Dei, and they called it a form of Christian Masonry. And they were,
yeah.
I mean, and that's weird that the Jesuits would be upset about a form of Masonry. Isn't that their whole bag? Are they this, or are they? What's the deal? Are they worried they don't control it? Is it that? Because it kind of feels like that's what they're saying. They don't non-Jesuit controlled Opus Dei. Is that what it is?
I think it was like why you guys have to go into that room and close the door and have secret discussions. Like we already got a room that you can come into. You can come into this room. I think that might have been a little part of it, at least with like the Jesuit interaction with Opus Dei, because this was the Catholic Church saying we need our own little secret thing going on for some of our members. Like again, I wish I knew what the secrets were, right? Like, is the secret just that these were the people that answered the call and decided that they got swindled into like a life insurance kind of policy, or is it something
probably
deeper?
More, bro? I mean, because like a lot of
I'm sure it was more.
I mean, they were more because they were so strict, and I think it's also at a time right when Pope Pius XIII is in charge. So you've got like kind of the Nazis are involved with the Vatican at that time, and so there is kind of a push to create like a group of people that are saints of the ordinary life. I mean, okay, that's what he's calling Escriva and the creation of Opus Dei.
So like timing is my thing, so I saw October 2nd, 1928. That's Kubrick's birth year. So I looked at how long after his birth. It's 69 days, which is kind of a good thing, a good number. But then I just looked scrolling down and it says the end of 2014, the prelature has been established in 69 countries, while its members are present in 90. And then it said, then they had a transition of power. The guy died in December 2016, was succeeded by Fernando Ocares. He was elected the new prelate of Opus Dei on January 23rd, 2017. Now that is Trump's first Monday in office / his K day, which is the day on which you're as old as Kubrick was when he died. So that was like a big day for me personally, like looking a long time ago. So that's just stuff that's jumping out at me about Opus Dei.
We got a super chat from Sticky Marks. Joke. What's the last thing a stripper does to her a-hole? Is that like a bonus hole? See, this is weird that the a-hole and then there's the bonus hole is anyway. Before she goes to work, you'd think that it'd be A, B. Anyway, plan B. Drops him off. I'm trying to tell her joke straight through. What's the last thing a stripper does to her a-hole before she goes to work? Drops him off at a rehearsal. Anthony Kiedis told me that way. That's kind of cute. I like that.
Yeah.
I just want to say I love this visual of you've got like ancient people that are foretelling the future of Stanley Kubrick and then planning around important dates around the coming of Kubrick.
Well, the future looks backwards, right? So we're it's all an illusion. We're not going forward. We're
So it's a Tarantino
running
film.
in place. It's all a hologram, fractal temporal hologram that we're inside of. But what was I going to say just now about what you were just saying? Oh, the Kiedis, Anthony Kiedis. And did you need to see that Woodstock 99 documentary about them?
Yeah, totally.
They had a very interesting role in that whole
So fill me in.
episode.
This is Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic, right?
Well, that's the name of their album.
Anthony Kiedis.
Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Just the Woodstock 99 that was like
the documentary was called like the
69.
end of the world or something. I forgot. It was
something like that. It was it's a good I mean it's a hoot, but it just descended into chaos, seemed like a psyop massively, but it was all tied in with the whole new metal scene in the 90s. But then the Red Hot Chili Peppers like headlined the night, and the promoters are saying like, oh, we tried to get him to calm down, but they were just like, no. But it seemed like they were on a mission, like they knew exactly what they were doing and they were not going to be deterred. So they played Light My Fire or whatever, and everybody started burning everything. So
yeah,
they're a really sus band is what I'm trying to say.
You know, you think about all these like Woodstock events from '69 and after, and there's a lot of, what's the Alameda event and all of the concerts where the Hells Angels were in charge that people got beaten up. And it feels like people forget that it wasn't just Woodstock. It wasn't just this one 69 happy. And not that Woodstock was perfect either. It was impressive that a lot of people didn't die or get raped. Like that so many people took care of each other is impressive. But for the most part, that didn't happen at every other concert. And there's a lot of craziness that ensued after that. And especially if you're from like Santa Cruz, where David and I grew up, it's just all, it was the murder serial killer capital of the world. That's like our
right. I remember hearing that from Dave McGowan in his program To Kill. He writes a lot about the Santa Cruz scene of weirdness, which seems to play out in that movie Jordan Peele did with Us, that David would probably like to talk about if you were here. But
well, his dad knew Edmund Kemper, so that was why. I mean, I think his dad went to school with Kemper, who was one of the dudes who was like they picking up the hitchhikers and cutting off heads and all that stuff. And now he does like audiobooks at the library. But there was one Herbert Mullin, is that the one I was thinking of? One of the dudes literally felt like he needed to sacrifice people to stop the earthquakes. Is it Mullin? It was like Santa Cruz serial killer Earth.
It's not an original thought, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I was like, yeah, it's just Herbert Mullin. Dude, Herbert Mullin was weird, man. And like, so I don't know if he started out. I don't know if he started out weird, because he might have been he got in trouble. He was like a vagrant, but got put through one of those good intentioned Mendocino programs, and they give him like a orange sunshine or some sort of Q-benzis or some crazy research chemicals that fried his brain. And I mean, because you look at it, he has the same story as so many kids you hear today, most likely to succeed. He
was born the same day as James Woods.
Grew up in the Redwoods in San Lorenzo Valley High School, like pretty much like even today, that's just in the Redwoods. It's like in the forest, one of his friends was killed in a car accident the summer after graduation. He was devastated. Like things will happen.
His first murder.
Yeah.
October 13th, 1972. That's the day Danny Torrance was born. Dan Lloyd, the actor. And that's crazy.
His birthday was the anniversary of the night.
It's actually I'm sorry, it's Danny Torrance's birthday, but it's also 666 years since Friday the 13th original.
Oh, wow. Really?
Like, the original one. Yeah, so that's
interesting.
Intense.
I mean, so he his birthday was the same day as the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. And so he was like he felt like earthquake, supernatural connection to earthquakes, and that, somehow California the land needed to be appeased. And yeah, like Thomas said, this is not a new thought. I think this is kind of what some of these at least in anthropology, they talk about native tribes that are sacrificing people in the Mayan Empire and even the Aztecs to stop environmental disasters and earthquakes. So he was, believing the same kind of thing.
Wow.
It is a weird.
I wonder what Dave McGowan would say about this guy.
There's like so many weather gods and storm gods tend to also be the agriculture gods. So usually when they're sacrificing somebody, it's either for like bring on the food, or stop killing everything. Those are the two sort of on and off switch for most of those gods that they go for.
Yeah.
Then this one right here, he kind of says it in that second paragraph that he thought that the Vietnam War had stalled the earthquakes because that was essentially a blood sacrifice. But then when the Vietnam War stops, I guess he took it upon himself to continue those blood sacrifices to appease the earthquake gods.
He thought he was going to need to start to pick up the slack of the Vietnam War.
Wow.
So freaking nuts. But this is so common in Santa Cruz. You hear this story like
they
100 Ways to
underdelivered.
Sunday. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are doing this, and it seems like they all have the same story. Peripherally involved with like the Marine Corps. At least he tried to apply, but they refused to sign because of his criminal record, and his association with the Mendocino State Hospital. So like it's pretty easy to see how he was given things that changed his state of being. Like a lot of people were given weird research chemicals and drugs in this area, and we think of Woodstock, and we think of like the LSD tests, which were fun, but we don't really think about all the other stuff that was going on because not everybody made it. Pretty much, it sounds like. I mean,
when the CIA just posted up and had houses where it was like, hey, if you need a place to stay, if you want to come and do drugs, you can come and do it here. Just let us take notes and record you.
Yeah, I mean, so there was also stories about like Freedom of Information Act started revealing that Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, their safe house, which used to be in an insane asylum.
2 American spies.
Whoa, I just started playing audio, but yeah, Jerry Garcia and they had an insane asylum that they'd purchased and turned into kind of an acid house on 19th Avenue, right across from the Scottish Rite Temple. And so that area, it's always been where crazy people hung out, right? And so it's just perfect. Like now you make it a place where crazy people. But even then, people used to voluntarily go into asylums when they felt crazy. So nothing's changed, right?
Well, that's also not a coincidence because the Scottish Rite was deeply involved in dementia research from the 30s and on. So the fact that a Scottish Rite building might be right across the street from an insane asylum makes perfect sense.
It's also interesting because right next to that Scottish Rite building is their dementia research building. So they even have a building there that they're doing that. So, and of course, you'll look into biopharmacological nootropics, and these drugs are being used in Alzheimer's research. DOI, DOC 2-5, dimethylphenethylamine is used in brain hormone reuptake after everything is drained. So, I mean, how do you find this out, right? Like you have to have people that are interested in taking drugs, and they voluntarily do it, and you study them, right?
This was hard for me to relate to, but I've talked to a chemist recently that kind of specializes in designing drugs, and it was mind-blowing that he had no interest in ever taking any psychedelic or any of the drugs that he was designing, but he was fascinated in designing them and knowing what they do. And then if someone else wanted to take it, that's another story, and he's interested, but he didn't want to do anything ever. And it was just it's a weird dichotomy.
Inverse of Sasha Shulgin, who was just like tested everything on himself and his friends.
Yeah, well, he tested on himself first every time, though, because he was responsible for the things he was doing, and I think Sasha's a really great example of the way to make sure that you're being careful. And he had a lot of friends who were in the DEA, also. Like Sasha was a decent alchemist, but I mean, you think about James Nichols from Purdue Lab. He's all right, but he can't do those things because he's just above the board, following all the rules. He wants to, I'm pretty sure, but he can't. And then, I don't know, I saw like the Dirty Pictures documentary, which was about Shulgin, and it has this guy from like Georgia or Carolinas somewhere. And he's like an atheist scientist who doesn't believe in the woo behind biopharmacology. And he's important to exist, but that's scary because he's more interested in trying drugs on rats or whatever comes voluntarily in. And I think you can't really know what you're getting out of that. That's the problem, What about
what do you mean? What do you mean you don't know what you're getting out of it?
Well, because you're watching somebody else and you don't really know like the full experience, what's really happening. I mean, that's the thing. There's like a psychological aspect. There's a biopharmacological aspect. There's a chemical change, but there's also how you behave and how you exist because of that. And those things change. I mean, if you give somebody alcohol in a bar is different than alcohol in a jail cell, or something like all of the way that they tested LSD because of that. They tested it in a hospital
like
bed.
they enter this room, it's like all white. There's people with clipboards. You're wearing a gown, like the fluorescent lights are on the entire time.
They say they were abducted by aliens. Yeah, it's like what do you expect to happen? But you can change all of the levels of it. You have someone who's there to help you approach a subject. This is why MAPS is, even though it's Soros funded, probably an important thing because it's doing research in post-traumatic stress of soldiers by giving them dopamine pushes and then having a psychologist or a therapist helping them process that trauma while they have enough chemical dopamine to handle it, right? I think that all of these things are important and they need to understand how they work together. And at least because of it, they're able to figure out that so much of what's going on is chemically driven, because up until biopharmacology and LSD, we thought most of the reactions were because you had a bad relationship with your mother. It was like all Freudian up until we got to chemistry. And so it's really important that it is related. Those things are connected too.
And there's a dark side of this too, because I guess the same person that you're saying, like the person that kind of tests it and finds out the limits and lets everyone else know and actually understands all sides of it, Dr. Jolly West. That's all I can think of. The dude that killed elephants with
one elephant.
One elephant we know of.
That you've heard of, yeah.
Jolly
probably had like a bunch of elephants.
Who names
a kid
Jolly?
The LSD. It was like the LSD followed by the barbiturates, followed by the stimulants, followed by more of the
yeah. Well, sure.
It's a good name. I don't know.
Lots to say about Jolly and the MK Ultra and all that stuff.
There was some MK Ultra stuff I wanted to bring up.
People associate MK Ultra with LSD and psychedelics, and they put them in the same box as if, like, if you do a psychedelic drug, you're part of MK Ultra. Like, I literally see that sentiment, and I think that's something that's.
I had a friend who was convinced. He's like, all those kids, man, it's in the catering. Like, there's like little bits of drugs they put in all the catering. So at Disney, they have those bluer eyes, man. Because look at these kids. None of them have blue eyes. They started out with brown-eyed girl, and like eventually, like they figured out how they could just like Disneyfy them all. And it must.
I wonder about the provenance of the picture and it could be shopped a little bit there. I don't know.
Well, those all could have been red eye too.
Yeah. Right. It looks pretty thing.
Don't trust it.
But like, what was I going to say? Ryan Gosling is Ken. Like, this works because it relates to Jolly West, and who was friends with Charlton Heston, who died. So Charlton Heston died 237 times 2 weeks after Kubrick. And I looked up Ken, just the character Ken, and he has a birthday, and his birthday is 237 times 3 weeks after the CIA started, was on Kubrick's 19th birthday, which I can't talk about constantly. So, and then there's also a bit in Barbie where he wears 3 watches, and that's his whole that's the gimmick. He wears 3 watches, but that's the exact same thing Buzz Aldrin was like famously doing in his little selfie a few weeks ago, and that he does it often. So there's like this the 33 thing. Ken is sus. You can't get out of it.
The 3 watches thing was good because that was like literally the only person I can think of besides like, okay, maybe 1991 in Moscow, you might see some street punk wearing 3 watches, but otherwise it's Buzz Aldrin.
Flava Flav, maybe.
I think it's March 11th, 1960. I think is one for the person who asked.
Well, he does it several times. He's a stunner. He's a stunner, man. Like, that's what's going on there. There's definitely a reason, though. What did you say it was about?
I don't know. I mean, it seems to be signaling the whole 33, and we know Buzz is a 33rd degree guy, and along with
my
grandpa.
The Mickey Mouse watch too is pretty based. Like, I'm gonna go to space with the Mickey Mouse watch. There you go.
Who was the guy that stuffed that smuggled on a ham sandwich? That's pretty based too.
Dude, yeah. How do you get away with that? Like, it's like the weight problems and everything. We're supposed to just believe everything we hear about space. Okay. How about we look at some of Eddie's posts, because Eddie's not here. I wish he was, but FEMA officials are holed up at 3 5-star $1,000 a night luxury Maui hotels amid search and recovery efforts in Lahaina, while thousands of homeless people are granted a measly one-time $700 payment. Marxism, go.
17.
Well, I just want to say how you can't do your best thinking at a Holiday Inn Express, really. So I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
if you
351.
if you want the best thinking from the best people, you got to put them in the best places.
Or like the best thinking from the worst people, you gotta put them in better places, probably. You know, because these are just female officers here. You gotta remember.
I think this whole thing in Maui is kind of fake and gay.
Oh yeah, so Art, I don't even know if what words you're allowed to say anymore. So do you guys believe in Mountain Dew at this point? Do you think they did the do?
Well, I mean, they definitely. We got. So, by the way, thank you for saying that. So I can remind myself. Anytime we say something, it seems like about a week before they uncensor us. So if this video goes yellow, it's going to be members only for like until they green it again. So that's what's going on. Is we said something like Mountain Dew. Anyway, keep going. So
Is that really? You can't say that?
Well, we'll find out right now, won't we? So direct energy weapons. Let's
Go there it is.
We could just start with direct energy weapons wiki. I mean, because like that's the thing I've always found is when you go to Wikipedia, it's a lot harder for them to get, and everyone goes upset like, why do Wikipedia? Well, because you know the fascists who run the trains, like they use the Wikipedia. That's why. But a direct energy weapon is a ranged weapon that damages its target with highly focused energy with a solid projectile, including lasers, microwaves, particle beams, and sound waves. It's super general, is kind of what I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
Like when people say, "Does this exist?" Well, this. What was the guy the other day? Mirror in car fire.
That's Judy Wood.
Dude, mirror in car fire. I just saw this crazy video. Like they melted their car. Because they left a mirror in it, so it created a direct energy weapon. I mean, you can do this pretty easily, and there's batteries and there's things. Sure, the question then becomes, could it be that it wasn't all on purpose? But that's a whole other question that's less important because there's definitely things that are. I mean, the main thing is like BlackRock, Maui, and Vanguard own huge amounts of the beach area, and they weren't cleaning up the forest brush. A lot of witnesses had said for like the last 4 years they weren't cleaning up around there, so it made it really easy for a fire to go really fast, and then there wasn't any active response. And a lot of the time people do insurance fraud, and it could easily have been that these corporations that are owning these hotels, they have this huge insurance money. They're not making as much money off the rentals right now because less people are able to come. And so this will make it possible for them to rebuild something that's more practical. And they're bringing in all this money because now it's $1,000 a night filled up with FEMA officers. So that worked out, right? And I think that's the future in general. It's just people will be replaced by corporations, business expenses.
Yeah, a thought that has been terrifying me lately ever since I probably saw it on like a TV show. It wasn't like a super deep thing, but it posited this suggestion that is the government actually being run by people anymore, or is the government its own entity, and now like it's got its own life force, its own inertia, its own everything, almost its own consciousness, and it's the machine, and we're just all getting ground through it. Even the people that think that they're running it and they're at the top, they're just getting ground through it as well. You're muted.
I had nothing good to say. No, that's literally the whole point of guild law. Like in the old days, we mix up like Freemasonry with guild law, but guild law was in order to protect the system that had emerged. You'd have tradesmen come in, and you want to make sure that trade continues to exist in your city, right? And you're worried what happens after a few generations. Let's say you're like in Diocletian's empire, and you're a baker, okay? And then all of a sudden, your kid doesn't want to be a baker. Well, now there's no baker in the town, so you have to make laws that force people to become bakers, or you incentivize it. But if you incentivize it, then you're saying, well, we're going to give you more money than your bread's worth because we actually just need bread to exist. And this doesn't have to be for just baking. This becomes the entire administration of the city. Police is a great example. How much you're paying police, why in Eastern Europe you end up with police that were taking bribes because they weren't getting paid enough by the state itself, right? So the whole infrastructure, you have to build a system, and corporate law emerges out of guild law for that purpose, because you created an entity that has an agenda, and every part of it is a cell in the system of organs in the political body. So it really is its own entity, and we know this because you could say, "Oh, well, what are you going to do? as a child, you know this. What do? Become a good teacher in a bad school, become a good police officer in a corrupt city. Like everyone knows that putting a little bit of pure water into a dirty cup doesn't make sense. And so everyone constantly saying, well, I'm going to try to clean up the system.
Change
the
it from
logical,
inside.
the subconscious logical response is that is impossible, because you would only be a cog in the machine itself, right? You can't really do that.
That's why I like Javier down there in Argentina. Wants to just throw it all out, just kill it with fire.
What do you think about
it?
that,
Actually,
Mark?
I watched his little video, and I don't speak Spanish, so I didn't know what exactly he's keeping. But there's this video of him just on a whiteboard, just like this, get this out of here, get this out of here, get this out of here. And then at the end, he's got like 4 different things or whatever. It's like, okay, we keep this stuff. This is good.
I just wonder if it's gonna work. By the way, learn Spanish just so you can like relearn Spanish for Argentina, because it's completely different. And the way they don't do ya sounds, they do ja sounds. So like it's beautiful. It's like instead of Castellano, it's Castellano. It's
Castellano.
Like it's very nice.
I just private messaged or tweet about that so I can show people, which is pretty good.
Right. I really want to stop dead naming X, but since they keep redirecting to twitter.com, it's hard. It's hard for me.
Yeah.
Prospective Argentinian presidential candidate Javier Milei, whose stare recalls Malcolm McDowell, was born 66 weeks, 6 days before Clockwork Orange released in the US, and 66 years, 6 months exact after J.R. Oppenheimer. Wow,
which was just so weird confluent, because I saw the picture, which was about Bitcoin, the orange, and I just thought, well, yeah, that looks like Alex Dillard from Clockwork Orange. And then I do this measurement, perfect. And then that kind of reveals itself with Oppenheimer too, because that means essentially that Clockwork Orange came out 66 years, 66 months, 66 weeks, 66 days, or 6 days after J.R. Oppenheimer was born, who's the father of the atomic bomb. So that's just interesting to me. That's all.
I find it interesting also just thinking about South America, because Route 237 is the route to where in Argentina they have the atomic research lab. It's the Roswell road of Argentina.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And it gets you to Bariloche, which is where they say Hitler's mansion was, right? There's a bunch of interesting things about Argentina and UFO Nazi culture. Like you've heard
that's
all that.
Crazy. I've never heard this.
That's the one for me that's the most important. I found it when I was driving on the road, because I was on a bus trip and I was like, wait, Route 237. Yeah, I got a sticker for it. And like the thing is, because the German typewriter in The Shining, I was like, well, come on. There's a reason. And
that subtext is all throughout Kubrick's movies, and Clockwork Orange, especially because it was like Rob Adger who had the whole theory that the Clockwork Orange is about the creation of the EU. And then, Joseph Farrell has a book about the creation of the EU, which basically argues that it's a kind of a Nazi project from the start, came out of the Nazi
the idea of corporate economic control instead of just political control. It's brilliant, That's you look at South America. South America is all about the banana republics and all the corporatism down there. Sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
I was supposed to have heard so many theories about what other Kubrick's movies are about. Specifically The Shining in like 2001, but I haven't heard a lot of interpretations of what Clockwork Orange was like a representation of, like outside of MK Ultra, which to me was like the obvious ones. Like, are there other ones? Are there other interpretations that are worth looking into?
Well, Rob Adger's stuff is always worth looking at. Although I think it's behind a paywall. There's a essay by Mark Leclerc that compares it to movies like The Parallax View and those 70s kind of paranoid thrillers, and arguing it's sort of about this. It's about fascism, communism. It's more interesting than that, but it's not. Yeah, compared to The Shining, it's definitely not one of the more analyzed ones.
It feels like it's about rehabilitation. It's like if you really had complete control, you wouldn't let people become criminals anymore. Like at a certain point, you would just force them to do what you want them to do. And we can do that. And here's the difference also in how, and it's also kind of the idea of Britishness, because I think it's about colonialism. It's not just about people, it's about states, and trying to figure out how you would control a state and get them wrangled up to do what you want them to do. While they still think they're free.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Shit. Oh yeah, Kubrick wrote a letter. It was a response to some reviews when it came out, and I think, and he basically wrote an essay about it, and he kind of describes it as about the creeping psychedelic fascism, which is kind of an interestingly conservative kind of view of where the '60s was
Right. But that's
headed.
because you have a fear of fascism, and then all of a sudden you have these people like Huxley that are saying, resistance is futile, singularity is nigh. People are going to be unable to. They're going to be forced to surrender. Love will conquer them. It's a lot of this stuff is fascistic and terrifying, and it's from the same place. Because it's from this heartfelt place where you believe you're right. You're as right as God, more righteous than God. And that everyone else, they're suffering because of how wrong they are. And like, you need to essentially like save them or spare them their suffering. That's like, you need to like end their suffering. Come on, that's fascism. That is why Starship Troopers is interesting. That's why Star Trek is interesting, because it's evil. But they think they're the good guys the whole time, right? They're like, we have a prime directive we have to follow, and they're always arguing like, yeah, but that's evil. Like, yeah, I know, but it's the rules. Like, that's the whole.
Well, shit.
There's also I was trying to look it up, but apparently there's a makeup company called Huxley. So searching for Huxley Foundation. Anyways, but the Huxley Foundation, founded by Julian Huxley, the brother of Aldous, and he never gets as much credit as he should, because he was the one that was actually like doing all of the non psychedelic and like writing endeavors. Julian actually put this together, but they were very strongly in that, like what you just described, and then add on to it. And none of your family members should ever have kids again either. If you require this amount of attention or you don't fit into society, like, we should just end it there, and eventually we'll have this kind of perfect society.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what Clockwork Orange is about, because it's about the rehabilitation of this guy. And somebody in the comments pointed out how the book has a final chapter where he basically is just like grows up and has a family and is like, oh, I put away all that. But that chapter wasn't in the book in the American version, and even Burgess was like, this is kind of out of sync with the rest of it, so that's why it's not in the movie. And it makes more sense, I think, this way. But
well, I could have sworn that I remember reading a version where he's in like a restaurant at the very end, and it hints that he goes back into his violent tendencies, and that it wasn't a permanent sort of fix.
Well, it's been a while since I read it, but I know that it's very kind of syrupy, kind of just tonally different.
It's just supposed to. I always felt like, so you've got 1984, Brave New World, and Clockwork Orange, and they're a trilogy, and so 1984 is showing from a Spanish anarchist, even though he's born in India and he's British, everything else, George Orwell, Eric Blair. He's writing about an impossibility of the dictatorship. There's no way that this could work. It's falling apart even now, and it's just inevitable that it'll collapse. It's like Ray Bradbury's house, the automated house that's falling apart. Like, eventually 1984 will turn into 1995 and we're all going to be free. Like, there's no way it can keep going. That's kind of built into the suffering, because we just need another Steve Jobs. That's it. Yeah. And then you've got Brave New World, and Brave New World is arguably the more terrifying of the two, because it's about a plausible future. Like, we could easily see ourselves in this sort of dystopia, because if you forget that it's suffering, you take drugs, right? There's soma. And so with soma, it's an applicable reality that we could be trapped in the Brave New World. It'd be impossible to escape the Brave New World. I mean, you could just walk away from it, but why would you? Because of the drugs. And so Brave New World is terrifying. And from there, I think it intrigued Kubrick enough to say, okay, well, that's the real nightmare. The nightmare is you lose the capacity for your singular freedom, your one freedom, non-Lockean, Hobbesian freedom, to try to die fighting against submission. You have one freedom that you could try not to submit. And if they took that from you, then you'd lose humanity. We'd lose humanity, but it would be a lot safer. And that's part of Clockwork Orange.
And I want to say, it wasn't just Kubrick that was inspired by Brave New World and Huxley, because Anthony Burgess himself gave Huxley credit for being like his entry point into dystopian fiction as a whole. Like if you go to the Anthony Burgess Foundation site, there's a whole section on how he was inspired directly by Huxley. So the thread that ties from Huxley to Kubrick to Burgess to so many other people, like man, we could do an entire, you know, like multi-part series on how Huxley is behind this all. Like he was the single-handed Illuminati family. I mean, and then his
Dude,
dad
all the
was,
Huxleys are, yeah, exactly.
well, his dad was the attack dog, you know, the barker for Charles Darwin. Like that's where he got
so
his
that was
chops.
and so interestingly enough, yesterday I was doing with Thomas his interview video so go watch his channel because we talked there. But one of the things that came up was Darwin to Jean-Baptiste Lamarck to Chardin. And Chardin's books were basically banned by the Jesuits because he was a Jesuit priest who discovered the Peking man and evolution and everything. But the person that got that published was Julian Huxley, and the foreword to The Phenomenon of Man is by Julian Huxley. And so if it weren't for him, most people wouldn't even know anything about Chardin, and it's already pretty suppressed and esoteric. So it's impressive how much he got out of it. I think that he knows the closest thing that we know to be true about changes and processes of consciousness and biology, if we're going to call that evolution, come from Chardin. So Huxley was one of the first people to know the truth of that, and most people still are trapped in kind of lost in antiquated Darwin paradoxes that don't really work or stand up the test of time.
Yeah, the physics of the world is a big hoax to me. The Einsteinian kind of world we're in like this box of thought that you can't really escape from when it comes to actually how the universe works and how energy works. And so let's get that Tesla tech going.
I love Lemaire. I feel like Lemaire is really interesting. You've got a picture here where he's got like
the ether.
He's got MC squared and he's got E over there. You know, he's basically got it. And then Einstein takes it and says they're equivalent. And he's like, whoa, calm down. And then eventually Einstein says on his deathbed, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was just trying to like take this dude's theory and popularize it and make it cooler. And I figured if you removed God from the equation, it would be like way more like publishable. And it's true, it was, but it was an incorrect theory. So now we're stuck with looking back and trying to find Lemaire, who is apparently in Quantum Leap. He's the most important physicist or philosopher.
Oh, nice.
So that works out. What about COVID?
But
Eris?
Quantum Leap would never really they never really sorted that technology out.
No, they never figured that out. Actually, I think he's still trapped because God's like just making him do stuff. What's going on with COVID Eris? Like, hail Eris, the goddess of discord. I think that's really important.
Well, now you're definitely getting the yellow mark from YouTube.
You're not allowed to talk about Eris, dude.
I don't think you're allowed to say the C word, man.
Eris from Final Fantasy VII.
So we were all chatting on Discordia, chat app. You know what I'm saying about Eris? No, I mean because this is the thing.
Eris.
You shouldn't name a virus after the goddess of chaos, but it's almost retrograde, so can't be an accident, right?
Well,
I mean,
it's opposite, retrograde. So if you name it after a goddess of chaos, isn't it the opposite?
It's gonna work out. Yeah, it's obvious.
Isn't this order out of chaos?
This is exactly right. So it sounds pretty good to me. I think that might be what we needed. Actually, I'm all about Eris. I think she's pretty important. So, but then they said that they're gonna. So Alex Jones, I was like, the InfoWars, just for the sake of it. Call Dr. Stella Emanuel. They said that there's gonna be buy your Rebels and CBD. They said there's gonna be like mask mandates coming back. Do you guys think that's really gonna happen?
No,
like, is that just a bunch of
I'm in
fever
Florida,
porn?
man. So I mean, I don't even like the last one.
You don't
didn't
fly
even hit
though.
too hard.
You don't fly. If you get on a plane and they make you wear a mask, and what sucks is they barely remember to bring you peanuts anymore. They're like getting ready to like not bring you peanuts unless you. I'm gonna be paying $9 to not wear a mask on a plane.
And with the captain who might have a heart attack and the plane might crash.
Dude,
I'm
getting
increasingly scary.
Yeah, it's like this is dangerous. I don't know.
Just take the train.
I just don't know because like everyone I'm hearing are just upset about that. Like everybody, even
that it's coming back or whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean I don't think it really is though. Because that'd be crazy.
It seems
but they're saying that but Alex said that he's hearing TSAs calling up him and telling him that in Canada this new variant Eris is coming down, and so that TSAs are being informed they're probably next week, the week after, going to start having to have masks. And I just hope he's wrong. Like, I don't know. Like, it can't be right. How can they bring back masks? How could people put up with that right now?
You know, if they come out with an N96 mask and that's going to be the new one, that's when you know it's going to be serious.
Dude, that'd be nice. I would like to get, like, especially if it's signed, you know, by, or like a Budweiser branding or something like that. I don't know.
How about talking about COVID? I'm just like, the more you talk about it, it's like it's a linguistic virus. It's not even as much as it is
Ebola chain, right? And they put Eris attached to it. They're trying to charge up that sigil with as much chaos as possible, don't they?
Sure. Hey, that's my page.
I just want to posit a random idea here, but
yeah,
you know how when COVID came through the first time, the flu went out, right? No one got the flu. It was almost like they eradicated the flu.
Yeah.
And what if there's almost, I mean, a little bit woo-woo here and a little bit like tongue-in-cheek, but legitimately, what if they just kind of like assign all these different illnesses to this one thing that everyone can focus on? If everyone just becomes hyper-focused on COVID, I don't like COVID, I want to avoid COVID, I'm going to get, you know, all of these boosters to just avoid this one thing. What if there is actually a way to kind of like have everyone focus on just sickness in general, call it a single thing, you know, it becomes like this hyper sigil, and then the medical industry maybe is actually like, we're gonna get the energy of the entire population to eradicate viruses by just focusing on this one thing. So maybe they are zapping out influenza. Like maybe influenza is not going to exist anymore, and it's always going to be this new strain. But like everyone can keep focusing on the one strain. I don't believe any of that, but that's something that you.
No, I mean it does kind of make sense. The idea that if they supersede the viruses and the you know, everything that already exists, if they can supersede that and they can control it, then they can ensure that whomever they want to be healthy is healthy, and anybody else has to pay to stay alive, right? Because everything would be so extreme. It'd be in everyone. Essentially, they've practiced that system on Africa for the last 40 years. Because they've had AIDS and they've been able to see the structure of how you would control the life of a person and keep them on a subscription to stay alive month to month. So I mean, it seems like that's
you have sick. You know, go to the doctor. I'm sick. Here's your pill.
Elizabeth Holmes thing. Like, what was her company where essentially you would go into like a CVS or a Walgreens and it would take a quick blood sample and say, "Here's everything wrong with you. Dispensing pills now." So I feel like she promised the thing that they want, but like, you know, she didn't deliver on it. But that's kind of where we're going to be at.
There's so the Star Trek world without the technology.
Yeah. Well, they have the technology. So like LaRoche, we know like there's nanopore and there's a bunch of tech that came out. And so it's really funny that she got in so much trouble for something that basically exists. But they wanted, I don't know what, I'm really curious, like what really went on. I can't even be sure I understand it because that technology exists. All it is rapid DNA genomic sequencing. They can do that. They've been able to do that since 2014, probably 2012. That they've been actually like, there's been nanopore existed at UCSC in 2012 and LaRoche purchased it in 2013. 2014, they had working models. And by 2016, they're not telling people that they're using it. So it means that it exists, but they're just not public about it. And so she's saying she's building a business model around this technology. But it doesn't mean, you know, it doesn't mean that the technology doesn't exist. It means she doesn't really have it or somebody else does. And she's using other people's machines in the back. They were still using other people's machines in order to do the sequencing. But there's everyone, you know, when I was in school, like that was the goal. We wanted Facebook updates. This is verbatim. Facebook updates of your DNA promoter sequences. So you want to be able to just see as your promoters, like tweets. And this is how they just explain it in school. Like you want to see your DNA turn on and turn off. It opens up this sequence when you wake up. It turns on these sequences when you go to the bathroom, like when you're digesting. Like they want to know all that because then you have predictive medicine, and predictive medicine's better because it's not just fixing a bleeding leg. It's keeping you from tripping. You know, like there's a lot of benefit to avoiding something happening in the first place.
It's the you know, first do no harm, right? It's the maxim, and I think they violate that constantly. And
well, you can get less and less people to take that oath. Like it's not doctors that have to.
True, yeah. And the doctors are useless anyway. But the more you press the universe, the body, it's an organism. The more you like mess with it, poke it, prod it, the more you screw it up. We just need to stop thinking like you need to go to more natural stuff, homeopathy, subtle energy medicines, traditions, and away from this techno transhumanist dystopian kind of shit, in my opinion.
It's like Christian Science.
No, just science, really.
Yeah, I mean,
Have you ever? I mean, do you guys ever? Do you know about have any experience with homeopathy, like classical?
There's some things also about Christian Science that's not completely wrong either. Like you
No,
probably
yeah.
should get surgeries and all that, but like having faith in intention is a good thing to include in medicine. I think because they call that placebo effect now, but they really believe in placebo effect more than they believe in their medicine. So,
Well, yeah,
but
isn't technically
homeopathics
that
are
way.
also like Chinese medicine. So if you go to China,
it's an energy.
you
It's
have
energy
social.
medicine.
Chinese medicine is social medicine, but you can choose Western, Eastern, or a mix of both. So you can go to an Eastern doctor or a Western doctor and socialized. So I mean, they're both systems are kind of fusing together at this point because all they
Like
have
a
to
mall
do is
food court.
yeah, but the kids are studying their parents' roots, you know, with the computers. They know what the synthesized herb is now. So the medicine's all becoming one. Homeopathy and Chinese medicine, it's going to replace Western medicine.
Well, I hope so. If that's serious.
We
But
can't
it seems like it's
afford
heading in the
Western
opposite direction.
Western
It's like
medicine is just
they're putting homeopaths in jail.
We're in this like prisoner of war camp where they're experimenting on us. That's Western.
Yes,
medicine.
that's true.
That's all
true.
it is.
That
they're
is
just trying
true.
to see what they can learn about the human body.
They've extended the what they're doing in the concentration camps, and the whole country is a concentration camp now.
God, DARPA,
as RFK basically implied.
Chip industry. They
ago.
want to make more chips in America. Target of European space debris removal mission is hit itself by space debris. This was kind of funny. I mean, even if it's just made up, like what are they trying to say? Because I was saying this the other day because actually yesterday we're talking Thomas and I about, or was it? Were we talking about this? The idea of space and people being trapped in space, that they can't somehow leave the atmosphere because they're in some sort of a South Parkian box that's keeping us from leaving. You know, and I feel like that is true. We have so much.
Are we talking about like a firmament?
Debris. Well, we have so much space debris now. Like if you just look up amount of satellites around Earth.
Have you ever heard of a space broom?
No.
A space broom is basically like an anti-missile defense system, but it's specifically for debris that comes a little bit too close to us. It just automatically pinpoints it and just uses a laser to blast it out of existence.
Well, because the thing with that is, where does it go then? You still have lots of stuff and you have more and more film of stuff. So if it were true that you have this many satellites, eventually it's going to get to the point where, yeah, you're basically inside of a giant box, you know, like you wouldn't be able to pass through it. And if these things crashed into each other, space debris is a big concern. If that were true, I don't know. I mean,
well, I don't know if those
stuff.
images are to scale. I think sometimes they scale the satellites up a little bit so that you can see it. I mean, in order for
yeah. Even so, though, like for people who don't even believe in space, like this is the narrative. Like this is what they're trying to tell you about. So kind of like global warming, they're preparing you for the next issue, which is space debris. There's going to be so much you won't even be able to see the sun. You're just going to be blocked out. I feel like that's
Mr. Burns, yeah.
Yeah, it's the next thing. They're like, whoops, we put too much stuff up there. Our bad.
Well, I mean, it could also just be like a more controlled version of HARP, where they used to think that you could heat up the ionosphere and it would expand a little bit, and that way you could sort of change weather patterns and have just a modicum of control over it. But now if there's a mesh network of satellites and you can just tell them like all satellites get together and block the sun from this area of the world, you could just block out a certain place. I mean, it is literally the Mr. Burns sun blocker thing because he didn't want anyone to use solar energy, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're almost to that point. We're almost there.
Drones just like selectively denying people sunlight.
I like the broom though. The broom would be cool because you could push them out of the way.
Hey, dude, look it up. Space broom. It's wild, man. I thought it was a joke when I looked it up, but it's an actual thing that they have out there. And if you want to look into the Mountain Dew thing, I mean, space broom, if you just point it down a little bit, bam.
For Panetta, did you guys already bring up Destiny 2 Season of the Witch with Eris Morn? I don't know if you guys keep up with video games. You know who loves Destiny 2? I'm pretty sure you could say is Adam. Adam loves Destiny 2 from Base AF. And I did not know about Eris as the mom. But you can find like Robert Anton Wilson talked a lot about Discordianism and Eris, and it is an interesting subject. Like the number 23. 23. What do you think about 23 and chaos and Eris? Like, why is 23 enigma associated with Eris?
Oh, with Eris, I have no idea really.
Because the number 23, I mean, it's this what do they call it? Icocytriophobia is like the fear
of the number 20.
But you don't have to be afraid of it. I mean, but some people are preoccupied for sure with the number 23.
I'm certainly preoccupied with the number 237 and some other numbers.
Can't spell 237 without 23.
It's true. There's a whole thing. Like, I think I've told you guys this before, but that movie Under the Silver Lake, where which is all conspiracy, like
I love
fetch quest. Yeah, it's an interesting movie. But then, like, so the guy goes missing, and his name is Jefferson Sevens. So, like, they're always talking about the missing sevens. Where's sevens? And so I kind of look at that the way I look at the 23 enigma, because it's like missing the 7. It's like, where you got to get the 7 in there, and then it gets really interesting. So that's what I think about.
I'll notice in like Canadian TV, they'll have door 23 a lot, and you've got 23 pairs of chromosomes in normal
that
human.
movie. I mean, the Jim Carrey movie, the number 23,
yeah,
which released in the year 2007. So it was 2307 when it came out.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if they intended on that, but
seems reasonable. They made that movie so messed up. I couldn't even watch it because they're just trying to make people afraid of 23, which is strange. It was just supposed to be like this weird enigma where Burroughs and Robert Anton Wilson noticed, hey, you'll notice the number 23 a lot, like, because it seems like the real answer here is the universe or Clockwork Elves or whoever it is are speaking through synchronicity.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's such an NLP phrase. That's such like a Ericksonian, Miltonian hypnosis to be like, you're going to see the number 23 a lot. Like, just you saying that makes that happen for so many people.
It's true. It's true. The thing, you can do that with anything, really. But the thing, it is talking back, and it depends on how you look at it. Like, and that's what my whole deal with Cryptic K is kind of building a filter.
One time I was in Spain, I walked like 7 miles, and I've been walking every day on the Camino. I get into the middle of this small town. I find like this backpacker hostel, and at every wall has been written on for the last 20 years or longer by every person who's ever backpacked through this hostel. And there's a big piece on one of the walls that says, with a hole in the wall next to it, it just says, the number 23 is following you. So, I mean, I've seen that, like, that was probably 2012. But
I had a guy telling me about the law of 5 back when I was in college, and I didn't know anything about this stuff. And that apparently comes out of Robert Anton Wilson too, but it's the same thing. It's like, oh, everything reduces to 5. It's like, that's all, everything's 5. 2 + 3 is 5. It's like, so you can do this with so many different ways.
And so many of these like little quirks and gematria and stuff, it feels like we're just explaining interesting facets of a base 10 number system. Because if you were to split this into like a base 12 or a base 16 or a base 8 or any other system, like similar but different patterns would emerge, and like I feel like those would be just as important, even though they might not be conventional, because we've got the the 10 digits. If everyone had 6 fingers and 6 toes, then we would have a completely different set of correlations, and maybe it wouldn't be 23 anymore. It would be offset by 2.
179, bro. That's what we
179. 17. What's 17 times 9?
No one told me that there
153.
would be any math here.
It's 153.
No one gave you the memo that we'd be doing that. Okay. Well, this is great. Rapid tables. I'm actually pretty stoked on rapid tables. This is pretty sweet. You should probably use that for a lot of reasons. I Sticky Marks super chat. Are you small Coke legging small? I'm 75 pounds dripping wet. Have the sweat, but think covering my a-hole is mandatory. Love y'all. Be good. How can we be good after that? Like, that just seems impossible. Okay, well, Robert Anton Wilson, number 23. There was some other things I wanted to pull up, like Synchronous, Lionsgate. What about you? Do you have anything you wanted to pull up, Alex? You had something about Twin Peaks that you saw.
Did I?
You put up this Twin Peaks post about.
Oh, that. Well, that has to do with the thing that looks like. Well, somebody blocked me. The question was like, what's the who's the most famous person that's ever like noticed you online or whatever. And so it's David Lynch for me, because I wrote my essay about the Twin Peaks The Return finale with a 2-part, which was basically arguing that the 2 parts of the finale that aired the same night were meant to be watched in sync. And it kind of blew up at the time, to the point that he got asked about it in an interview. And he said it's bullshit, but but it's beautiful. It's, as he says, sure, if there's 100 people in the audience, you're going to get 100 different interpretations, especially when things get abstract. It's beautiful. Everybody's a detective, and whatever they come up with is valid in my mind. So I'm right. Straight from him. It's valid. Yeah, that's the highlight of my writing career.
Valid bullshit.
Yeah. And I still stand behind that sync, though. It's really awesome. And actually, I kind of started syncing other episodes. I kind of drifted away from it, but I felt for a time that the whole series was meant to be watched in pairs, because, like, it's Twin Peaks. If you peek there's so much to it. It's crazy.
That brings up an interesting thing. Like, once the art leaves the artist, I personally don't think they own it anymore, and they don't have any. They don't get to have any say in what it actually is.
Poor George Lucas.
Like, I don't care what the intention was. That
you are
thing
Disney.
mutates.
I can see Mickey Mouse, and he just like zips his fly down and pulls out a lightsaber, and like nothing else. That's fair, I guess. I mean, because now it's in your head. But I mean, it's amazing how artists can take back art and so Star Wars is interesting, because you start out with these. I mean, again, recently going to Bosnia and starting to see like war trauma in children. There's a thing like in the Vietnam War, and kids after Korea, especially kids who grew up with dads who went to Korea. So when you're watching the original Star Wars, it's kind of like a lot of shows. They're emulating what kids are playing about in the 60s, and kids are playing about soldiers that are fighting each other because that's familiar, or maybe not. Maybe it's something that's so close to them they don't understand it and they're wrestling with it. But that's not something that's in everyone's life anymore. Not everyone's parent is a soldier. And so I think they stripped a lot of that from Star Wars. And now it's just about kids playing and going to like summer camp and to science fair. That's what every episode feels like of every show to me.
But people are arguing about it online like it's the, World War, the trenches, which kind of brings me back to that. What I was going to say about Twin Peaks is that what he said was like, it's beautiful. Whatever comes up
David
with,
can
great.
join too. No, I'm just kidding. We tried really hard to trick you. We wanted to move it around, but you found us. Here he is. Just kidding.
You made it. So, but when I posted my theory, my Twin Peaks sync theory, a lot of people got really mad about it. They're like, "No, it's not. That's not true. It's not the way it's supposed to be." And I got just a lot of bad.
Yeah,
some people liked it.
Several people blocked you.
Yeah, well,
they're like, I can't even see this.
That might be unrelated, but yeah. So people get mad online, and they get mad about Star Wars too.
Yeah, it makes you feel like there's something to it. It's like Roger Waters when anyone brings up Dark Side of the Rainbow, and he just gets super pissed off, and you're like, You know what? You're like strong attachment there being anything to this. Like, you'd think, like, even just creatively, even if he's not claiming intentionality, be like, oh, that's interesting, what an interesting idea. Instead he's just like, no, and you're like, dude, you started doing soundtracks. The Wall's practically a music video. Like, the movie's on mute. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. The other thing, the thing I was going to say about Lynch too, or that I made on the comment I made underneath, was that when he says bullshit, the guy's like, there's a theory that the last 2 episodes are meant to be watched at one time, and he says bullshit. That's just a word. You don't know how he says it. So my little fan fiction is that in his head he says bullshit, and then in his head he says somebody figured that out. Jesus, no way. But probably not.
I thought that would take another 20 years.
I know. I was gonna be dead before. I need to try again, but nobody liked it. So.
Well,
nobody. I mean, you say nobody.
People.
I was really stoked when George Lucas sold Star Wars, because I have a lot of like theories that upset people. And when Disney bought Star Wars, a lot of Star Wars fans just dropped it. It was like, it's like their wife started dating another guy finally. They're like, okay, I can let go. I can let go of Star Wars now. And I think most people just stopped caring about Star Wars the same way. And you can say, like, you used to be able to, if you were to mention that the Sith you don't really think that the Jedi are the good guy and the Sith are the bad guys. You could probably get in a fight with some Star Wars fan boys, and I think now people just don't care and are,
Dude, you could quote the power of myth to people at a certain time, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's outrageous," and you're like, "Dude, this is the thing. This shouldn't be even debatable." But whatever.
Now you get into fist fights about whether or not The Last Jedi was good or not. It's ridiculous.
That's pretty cool. I like when we're fighting over Peggy Sue. Is it Peggy Sue? Mary Sue? Peggy Sue got married. That's how I remember. David's
I saw it not long ago. Yeah.
Time travel movie.
You saw? Wait, what did you see? The Star Wars or Peggy Sue got married?
Peggy Sue got married. Yeah.
There. That's a much better movie.
If you're gonna do like the time travel movies, like you gotta include that. You know,
dude, it's a good movie. Has everyone seen Peggy Sue Got Married? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
This is an underrated one because it's all about like a time traveling Shriner's Lodge. You know, like she has to go to the lodge in order to travel through time. It's pretty good.
Right, although they take her from there and she kind of does a tapping shoes thing anyway. That's like because she leaves
she has
it,
to
whatever.
Do the ceremony at the lodge. I felt like
totally, and there could be more to that. Yeah, and there's the thing with Nicolas Cage's character in this movie that because he's related to Francis Ford Coppola, if I'm not mistaken, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I guess it was in his like agreement to do this movie that he act as zany or as weird as he wants. That it's his character. And like so like that they just like let him do that because he wanted to be memorable. You know what I mean? He wanted to like leave an impression, I guess. And he did that. But it's just like it's so weird. It's such a weird character. But like that was part of like he's like, I'll only do it if I get to act as weird as I want.
I just Peggy Sue Got Married. So it's a time travel story, and there's an actor in there that is his name Kevin J. O'Connor. It's like his second role, and I first saw him in the Stephen King miniseries 11/22/63, which is the time travel story about going back in time to stop the JFK assassination. And he's the guy who every time James Franco goes through the portal back in time, he's the guy that's standing there and he sees him and he's like, "You're not supposed to be here, Kevin J. O'Connor." And so this guy, like I said, had his first or second role in Peggy Sue Got Married. But his birthday, the crucial thing is his birthday is November 15th, 1963, which is the week before JFK, but it's the exact middle of Kubrick's life. So it's a weird web of synchronicity there.
White Men Can't Jump. Alex, one of Kubrick's favorite movies, as stated, among many others. But so I watched it recently, rewatched it. One of the opening shots. So on Woody Harrelson's title in the beginning credits of White Men Can't Jump, there's like a lifeguard structure on the beach in Venice, and it says 9/11 on it. With his title, which I thought was kind of like, oh, that's kind of sinky. But then one of the first scenes in this movie, Woody Harrelson is talking to Rosie Perez about the JFK assassination, and he makes some joke. Nice. I'm not going to do it justice, but he makes some joke about Lee Harvey Oswald and the way he says it. You have to watch it, but it was just like knowing the thing with his dad claiming to have been one of the shooters or whatever. Yeah.
And him and his dad were
Michael Jordan right there.
Woody and his dad the assassins were both born on July 23rd, which is 7/23.
Yeah, and I feel like 23 is important. Like 237's more specific, but 23 is just such a gateway.
Well, it is because that's why you see it everywhere because it's just two numbers.
Dude, and if you watch like every TV show, so like Monk, Psych, all the Canadian shows, like they have the same sets and they all use the same doors and the same sets with the same numbers. So it's always the hotel room 237 or number 23 or
but it goes back, man. It goes back. Like there's this movie called the Octopus.
Oh,
Shush the Octopus in 1937, and it's got room 237 in it on the door, and there's a door she goes in, and there's twins in room 237 there. It's a very bizarre. And then there's a woman who turns into an old hag in real time. It's like basically The Shining, and that's in 1937. So something.
You guys watched that Amber Heard Johnny Depp Netflix special?
Oh, I tried. It was just so bad.
It was all right. They did okay. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it whatever. They did a good coverage of all the different sides. I felt whatever. There's really only two sides, I guess. But one thing I forgot about.
Put Amber Heard in like a jar with a stick and a leaf and a lump of poo, like she's used to, and like keep giving her pills. Like the same as Schwarzenegger, the same as all of them. The whole reason these people exist is so I can watch them take drugs and transhumanate slowly.
Well, there should be like a Big Brother, and they just like ship these people off to like Big Brother land, and we just watch them that way.
The island. Sorry,
I want to point out that it's kind of whatever, because it's like I don't know if it's for heat or what it is, but whenever Johnny Depp or Amber Heard is on the stand, if you look behind them, they have a little box, and on the box it says 2375.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's on there. I don't know about like the particulars of whatever, but it's just like every single time. So like I forgot about that, but like if you watch that that documentary, anytime they're speaking, you can see it behind them when they
might watch that.
on the stand.
The whole trial of Heard and Depp reminded me too much of the trial of Tim Heidecker. I don't know if any of you guys saw it or familiar.
There's a trial for Tim Heidecker. I don't know about this.
Yeah, so it's all part of the On Cinema universe where he caused his character supposedly caused the deaths of like 11 kids at a music festival for some tainted vape cartridges. It's this whole long thing, but then they do
it's a sketch.
It's
you're talking about sketch comedy. Okay.
Yeah, but it like straddles the line. It's like it's a full on like 10-hour trial. It's like a mock trial, but that is just totally like improvised, but it's the exact same vibe as the Johnny Depp, but it's fake. And so it's like anticipating the Depp thing, because Tim and Eric would constantly have Johnny Depp on their show, like, or Johnny Depp, they're a Johnny Depp impersonator. They're constantly making fun of Johnny Depp, as everyone does. But now the whole trial. So I want to watch that documentary and see more about it. But it seemed like such a stage play.
Totally, dude. Have you heard Wise Blood and Tim Heidecker's album that they did together?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And now have you heard the album with Emmanuel Feiner?
Oh, I listened to some of it on YouTube.
I gotta find that. I gotta listen.
It's
to
on
that.
there.
Check that out. That's
YouTube.
It's French, right? She's singing in French.
No, it's English. She's singing in English. It's just sort of like garage pop with Emmanuel singing. It's kind of dorky.
Okay, cool.
Kind of seems like a vanity project of some kind, but Ultra Orange. That's the thing that caught my mind. Is the fact that it's called Ultra Orange,
right? Ultra Violence, Clockwork Orange, yeah. And
Clockwork Orange, and also the orange symbolism in the ninth gate too, because like that's all.
Also, just because I wanted to save this one until David was here, and David made it. Pink Floyd Brain Scan. You guys heard about that? So this is pretty interesting to me. We've always been talking about how I remember like 10, 15 years ago, Berkeley, we had friends. David and I actually know from like the Paul Suite, who were working on reverse engineering brain scans. And then AI made it possible to, if they know that you're seeing a picture of a cat, to replace that picture of it with an actual cat. And they've been doing this with music. Now they have a Pink Floyd song made with AI and brain scans that sound a lot like the band. Plus there was another one where they reconstructed another brick in the wall from brain scan data. Let's see if I can hear that. Oh, I don't know if I can get the sound out of this video.
What's going on?
This is the Pink Floyd song, and this is the reconstruction of it. So we're really close to getting the actual music out of your mind. Like they can
but what's weird, I don't know if it's something in the way that I'm hearing it play through the thing or what that sounds like just direct, but it sounds like the thing that he does in A Momentary Lapse of Reason, David Gilmour, where he's like, there's like a voice effect that he does, like, sometimes I get tired of waiting. I don't know. It sounds like that to me, but
yeah, like the vocoder kind of thing. And I think as time goes on, it's going to be able to, the same way that with photos, it's able to pick up what that photo was about and replace it with something that you can understand, because it's two different layers there. But that's already pretty close. Like they're able to pick up what kind of melody, what speed it's going on. It's mind reading. Mind reading is so close to a precision art now. We're that close. What do you think of that? That's crazy.
Well, I think the interesting part of this is maybe the feedback loop aspect. Yeah, there's MK Ultra. They're going to spy on us. They're going to figure out what we're thinking and dreaming. But also, what happens if you say, I don't even want to listen to anyone else's music or watch anyone else's movies or TV anymore. I'm just going to hook this thing up that like knows what I want to see, generates it, shows it back to me, and then based on my reaction, alters it and feeds it right back into me. I feel like that.
And whole cast of people who are forbade from being part of society, like the Amish, but just to create our art. Because whatever they're coming up with is so original that it can't be, assumed. It's the only way you can protect your intellectual property rights is you have to keep somebody in a closed box system when they're making art. So they have to be isolated artists. That's what's coming.
That's correct, man.
Diana, who we love, Diana, you're the best. Another good time travel movie is The Lake House. Have you guys seen The Lake House?
Oh yeah, I had a whole tweet storm about Sandra Bullock, who's in that movie.
Yeah, how's that guy doing? Just kidding.
Oh yeah, I know this movie.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock, like, Jesus. Well, she's born July 26, like Kubrick. Starts with S, ends with K. She has the weirdest background of any actor, or one of them, because she's like
they were in Speed together is crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, they're in Speed together, and Speed is a Jan de Bont who goes on to make Twister, and all of his movies are just Kubrick worship.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah. What is Twister?
Yeah.
Right.
But the thing about
Speed,
I got.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, Speed. Okay, so I should probably bring it up on my thing so I can actually read it, because Speed is written by a guy named Graham Yost, the screenwriter. Now, this guy, if you look him up, he's listed as being from Etobicoke, Ontario, Canada. So that struck my mind because I've seen Deadwood 50 million times, and I remember that the character of Seth Bullock says that he's from Etobicoke, Ontario, even though the real Seth Bullock was not from there. And Seth Bullock being a real life character who was friends with Teddy Roosevelt, and who was also born July 23rd. So, okay. So Deadwood is made by David Milch, written by David Milch mostly, and he is the one that he later. See, this is why I should have my thing here. Okay, Grip by Graham Yost. Deadwood. Seth Bullock says he's from Etobicoke, Ontario. So and the writer's last name is Yost, and then David Milch's next show is about a family named Yost. So it's very strange. Like, does that
really
land
specific
for you guys? Like, it's very specific. And the Etobicoke, Ontario, I don't understand the connection, but the Seth Bullock, Sandra Bullock, Yost, Etobicoke, Ontario, Speed, all starting with Speed, which is like the breakout role for both Bullock and Keanu Reeves, which launched their careers. Which ends with the train landing in front of a theater playing 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
So Speed does?
Yeah.
Speed.
Okay, it's been a while.
Theater.
Yeah, and then Jan de Bont goes on to make Twister again, which has The Shining on screen that gets eaten by the tornado and a bunch of other references to The Shining.
Can't even find it now, but yes,
yeah. So anyway,
okay.
That's it.
Right. So it's 50 miles an hour that they can't go under in Speed. Right?
55.
There it is.
55,
the bus is right there at the Chinese theater, and 2001: A Space Odyssey is like plastered everywhere, bigger than it would have actually
So it
been.
couldn't be more obvious. Like,
did they do replays of at the Chinese theater of 2001 anyway? Like, or since 1968? Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't think so.
I don't know.
94, 93, whatever. But that, like, Jan de Bont, he was the cinematographer for like Die Hard and like every freaking 80s, 90s, like Him for Red October, like these big movies.
Right. It was also weird to have like Dennis Hopper playing the guy. I mean, Dennis Hopper's in a million movies, whatever. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh yeah, Dennis Hopper, right.
But no, I don't know. He's just like he's like the kind of a subversive hippie icon of sorts. Like he has all of these associations, and the pop quiz hot shot thing. The
Seth Bullock, Sandra Bullock thing is the thing that really like gets me. Like that's just because it couldn't be really more unrelated. Oh, and that's the last little piece of the puzzle is that Graham Yost would go on to make Justified, the TV show, which is with the guy who played Seth Bullock, Timothy Olyphant. It's like a whole spin-off of Deadwood, essentially, of that character set in modern times. So it's like Yost, and then it feels like insider signaling.
I just brought up Speed the other day when I came home and Bill was watching Sorcerer for the first time out in the garage, and so I caught the end of Sorcerer with him, and I was like, it has a Speed resonance, not in terms of the cinematography, obviously, or but the basic premise with the dynamite, where they don't want the dynamite, then they have to be all super careful, the stress, the tension of fucking, and it builds and builds and builds. It's kind of similar in a way. Yeah.
I still need to see Sorcerer. That's on my
There's a great Father Ted where the priest has a milkman who's doing all the ladies in town, and one of the guys rigs the milk truck that if it goes above 5 miles an hour, it'll explode. If it goes below 5 miles an hour, it'll explode. And he's just stuck, driving the milk truck. It's pretty good. Have you guys seen Come From Away yet? Like the September 11th, 2001 musical about the diverted flights?
No.
To Newfoundland. So this is worth your time. Even if you don't love musicals, and shame on you if you don't, but they made this thing. This is probably one of the better musicals that's come out since it's like not quite. It's like Book of Mormon. Good, I would say.
Wow, that's saying something though.
Yeah, it's pretty good, and it's made in Canada, and it's a true story. It's exactly it's a true story about September 11th that I can.
Interesting.
It's a comedy.
Marks, yeah, Sticky Marks for £2. Thank you again, Sticky. Talking about your Cocapelli merch. Oh, that's true. I do have some nice Cocapelli merch. And you got the shirt. Good. The leggings. See, I feel like you would look good in the leggings. I'm just saying. But Come From Away is about the Gander Airport, which I remember my dad and the Beatles, back in the day when you couldn't just fly across the world, you have to stop in Gander. That was where, so it's a huge airport. But the amount of people
Masonic compass.
The amount of people that live in this.
What's good for the goose?
Yeah, it's good for the gander. And there's a lot of amazing things in this musical. The Gander Commander, who's the toucan.
Oz, the police constable.
Oh, and everybody in the town, so the mayor of every town is like 1,000 people towns. But the point is, they didn't know what to do because they had all these people show up and they didn't expect it. There's like 200, 300 planes, 1,000, more than the population of the towns. Replaced with extra people, and they just had to figure out how to survive. But of course they're Newfoundlanders, so they have extra jackets, they all make sandwiches for everybody, and there's people who went and were diverted on September 11th go back to Newfoundland now and celebrate that they met all these wonderful people. It's become a great story. But the saddest tragedy is, let's be real, the reason why they were sent to Gander is because there's no one there, and if there were bombs on the planes, then they would just blow up all these people. It was there's a smaller population to worry about. So everything about it's really a tragedy, But
do you remember? I was trying to remember this just recently. Who the guy was that I think he lost his job over this with the military. He was a political official who was in the room with Dick Cheney on September 11th, and he claimed is that what it? Yeah, and he said that Dick Cheney said no, we're not stopping that plane when he had the opportunity. Because there was a moment where we could take it, because DARPA was down all morning with an exercise that they never did before or after, I guess. It was just this unprecedented thing. DARPA was not running on September 11th.
Well, I think it was a coincidence.
Well, that's the thing is, I imagine if you weren't a conspiracy theorist, you could argue, well, that's why they got insider information. The terrorists found out, so they're like, "Oh, DARPA's down. Let's just go for it." But I don't know about all that. But and then obviously Donald Rumsfeld announced that there's money, $2 trillion point something missing from the Pentagon. The records keeping department gets hit the next day. No injuries, thank God. With what was obviously not an airplane, but that's
directed energy weapons, dude.
It looks like a missile in the footage. That's what it looks like to me. I don't know what kind of a missile it was, but oh, right, yeah. No, I'm actually totally down with Judy Wood's whole
History Mystery is asking me how small the leggings are, and they're pretty small. I think a small will do you. If you wanted to go extra small, we'll talk afterwards. But the thing is, we got leggings that'll suit your needs. That's the Xirtus promise. Xirtus guarantee. I don't know. So the thing that's also scary. So I went to Bermuda, and they're like, yeah, when September 11th happened, a lot of planes got diverted to Bermuda. So the ones in the south got sent to Bermuda, and the other ones got sent north to Gander. And the ones in Bermuda,
they just disappear.
Yeah, but okay. So that's the other thing. When I was in Bermuda, I was like, why do people disappear in the triangle? And I'm at a pirate bar, and you mean why do people come to a pirate island and disappear? I'm like, oh, good point. A lot of people coming through here. disappear. Like there's reasons why people get disappeared aside from the triangle, but they put all of them in these nice hotels, right? They didn't have that in Gander. They put them in like the school auditorium, like FEMA camp style, and they loved it because they're American people being treated to love and kindness for the first time in their lives. Most of these people are from like Connecticut, have never breastfeed before, but it was interesting. I mean, just the idea that and also like all the animals that were on the plane because they didn't even know deal with it.
That'll probably turn into a Best Picture winning movie. It sounds fascinating, but
it's pretty good. You should watch it on Apple TV. You can find
the question of the planes on 9/11 fascinates me because I'm down with the September clues thing of the media being manipulated, especially the live feed and the idea that there were no planes at all. Seems, but that's one of those things that makes everybody really mad when you talk about it. And it presents certain problems, like if there were no planes, what happened to all the people on the planes? And so
if they didn't care about the people in the buildings, why would they care about the people in the planes? That's always
they just go kill them all. But then you go look at who they were, and
witness protection or whatever they do. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Sure, yeah. But I was just thinking that like something like Gander, like a lot of people could get lost there.
The weirdest conspiracy to me is the idea that they don't kill people. I think that would be amazing. They're like, what if they just had they were really meticulously picking up people and safely transporting
them? There are a lot of people that seem to think that the towers were empty and
I just feel like I think
that's all misinformation.
There's surely a lot of people that they make sure don't get on Titanic that day, but that doesn't mean that they don't mind. Like people die all the time.
Right.
People die.
That would be the ultimate conspiracy. What if the ultimate conspiracy is no one actually ever dies? They're just getting kidnapped.
That would be really amazing. That would
by aliens, and that's what they had to argue with the freaking Heaven's Gate folks, man.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I talked to 3 star channelers yesterday before Thomas, who say that they don't call them aliens, and I was like, undocumented workers are like close star people. That's what they're called now. They're just star people. So we're gonna have to. I mean, this is also gonna start to make its way into and be more pervasive in our reality. People saying we're channeling the star people we're trying to interact.
I cannot think of Starfighter.
What's that last Starfighter? It's a great movie. What's the movie about the alien with Gary Shandling, who goes through airplanes?
Millennium? No,
it's like
I don't know.
What planet are you from? With the lady from American Beauty.
Annette Bening.
Yeah. This movie's great. You ever seen this one? What planet are you from? God, watch a Gary Shandling movie with your time. So basically, the FCC is that right? No, the FAA are freaking out because this alien is showing up in the bathrooms, coming and going. That's how mid-flight he'll teleport into a bathroom of a plane and in and out. That's the way that they travel. They can only travel in already, and so. There's people that are working on the airlines. They're confused. Like this light shines from inside the toilet, and this dude comes out of it, and he doesn't have a ticket, and they don't know what to do because he got on the plane. But he's just trying to find a wife, And I think that's more and more what they're trying to push the idea. Like they're just trying to find wives, man. It's all right. Earth girls are easy.
Oh yeah,
Jim Carrey.
Yeah,
this is a random tangent on this one, but I'm curious if you guys have ever seen a movie called The Banshee Chapter.
That's the one with Spock, right? The young Spock. No, he produced it though. That guy, Zachary Quinto, produced it.
Okay,
it's like a H.P. Lovecraft thing, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's a retelling of Lovecraft meets Hunter S. Thompson has kind of like a doppelganger in it, and that they link it all to MK Ultra. That during MK Ultra they were extracting something from the pineal gland, but that this extract actually was a connection to another realm where these like entities are demons, and then they were linking that. In the movie itself, it's a little bit meta, where they're describing this H.P. Lovecraft story where a guy designs a special kind of like radio, and when he tunes into it, he can see otherworldly creatures, and he keeps cranking it up and up until he gets to the point where he realizes they can see him too, and then it's too late. And then they kind of like unfold that back into this movie where it's about the MK Ultra project, and they might have tapped into it. Has like some Project Montauk stuff going on with it.
Dude, that picture right there, dude, it's like 20 minutes into Mushrooms and Chill, and he gives you this look,
Dude, Boss Smiley. Boss Smiley is sad. Take it from this guy. Did you guys watch Push with Dakota Fanning? It's like this old movie from 2011.
I vaguely remember this, like a
Little
superhero.
bit.
Chris
movie.
Evans. Chris Evans is in it. This is a very MK Ultra movie. It's a post MK Ultra movie where they're in Hong Kong because all of the paramilitary groups have moved MK Ultra research out of the United States into Canada or into like Asia, into places where they're like in interzone. And these are all the kids that they're post fire starters. You know, they're able to start fires with their mind, move. There's things called pushers, changers, washers. They have all these different terms for their powers, their ability to push things with their mind or erase someone's mind and replace it and print it with their own memories, all those sorts of things. And the idea that they had to move offshore, you know, in order to get away with it. And there are lots of these expats that live around the world that are kind of internationalists that seem like they could be, that have that power, you know.
Telekinesis, is that what you call it?
Telekinesis, but also telepathy and whatever you would call just erasing someone's memories and giving them a new memory. Like you remember that guy just had sex with your wife, kill him. It's like, that's your best friend. You know.
Hey, you know those times when you're kind of zoning out, looking at the internet, and you're
scrolling.
not. Yeah,
I've been there.
You don't actually remember those times, is the thing.
You don't.
It's like a Taylor Swift concert. Yeah.
That's why time has gone
that's
so
the thing.
fast.
Like if you watch like Darren Brown stuff, like I feel like a lot of the Darren Brown hypnosis stuff is completely fucking real. Like they like where he reenacts the Sirhan thing or whatever using I forget that National Treasure of England, what that guy's name is, Stephen Fry. And like they perform an assassination on Stephen Fry, but it's all fake. But it's not fake that the guy was hypnotized. He was demonstrating how you do it. Like that guy, like when he has him take off his shoe and put it in the box and then he continues talking or whatever, I think that's 100% real. Like, yeah, and the fact that that guy has no recollection, it's like one of those things. It's like, so was it one of you guys was just sharing about the founder of the Temple of Set? Like he just died, and I was looking at like the Oprah Winfrey, like old
Michael
like,
Aquinas.
Yeah, thank you. And there's like some guy that like stands up and he's talking about how he took part in this ritual sacrifice, and they like and this guy here, he's debunking him because he's like, actually, there's no high priest except for Anton LaVey, blah blah blah. And so he probably was debunking him. But the guy, when people will be like, oh, that was like an own moment, when they're like, oh, when was this or what, he's like, he says he doesn't remember all these things. He's like, I had amnesia. Like that to me, like scopolamine, whatever, who knows? Like I'm like, that is for me, like that is not out of the question. Like for somebody to just have gaps, you know, they just I don't know.
Apollo astronauts they have a similar kind of thing about the moon, don't they? They're kind of like, well, I don't even remember it.
Dude, Taylor Swift is a freaking witch, and the idea that mass amnesia.
Oh, it's funny you say that.
Having her concert shut down, like I mean, just come on, like this is nuts. Like,
was it because someone said Anton LaVey and you were like, okay, Taylor Swift?
Do you remember?
I can't help but see. As soon as I see Xena Shrek, I see Taylor Swift.
So March 10th, 1977, right? David, March 10th, 1977, right? Big day.
Is that what is that? Why do I?
That's
yeah, that's the day in between the siege on Washington where ABBA got the concert called off over the bomb threat. It was the biggest concert to get called off on a bomb threat, to the best of my knowledge, in history up to that point. And yeah, that was it was bookended by the two Hal Craig movies, Airport 77 and The Messenger.
It's also, it's the day that Polanski was in the hot tub with Samantha Geimer.
That's right. And so I didn't put that together because I'd seen that before I went down that rabbit hole, and you brought that together for me. Yeah, that's nuts.
Right. So that's what I was So what I'm saying is Taylor Swift was born exactly 666 weeks after March 10th, 1977, which is just bizarre.
Yeah.
Considering that she's like one of the most famous people in the world. Right?
Keep showing pictures of Xena Shrek instead, but it works out. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, there she is, right? Well, is that why you were saying that, Thomas? Because of her, when you said bringing her up?
Yeah, well, like I heard Anton LaVey, and then all of a sudden, like we're seeing pictures of Taylor Swift.
Right.
Same
thing.
Totally. Same
thing. Yeah, and all those people surrounding him. That's weird. I think that's funny because it's something that's so acceptable now. Like if you want to talk about who's the three-name Rat Pack, what's his name? I share a birthday with my
Sammy Davis Jr.
Sammy Davis Jr. So like Sammy Davis Jr. now, if you talk about his thing with Satanism or whatever, like there's nothing outlandish about it. We know it. It's all true. Like even Jane Mansfield and these different people. But I think we relate to it that it's just like they're playing dress up. You know what I mean?
It
it's
was
like
the 60s. That's what we do.
Right. That's what we do with everything. We go, oh, well, those were wild times. Those were weird times. We got really carried away.
Don't really even remember it.
Yeah, we don't even remember what happened. That's the best like way to out yourself if we're dealing with anything. Like just like I don't even what.
Well, what's interesting about that is it just shows a subconscious Aleister Crowleyan ideology in your average person, because they're like, well, you know, that was back when people were not embridled by the dogma, so they were able to make these experiments, and we learned from that. It's a good thing. It's like, well, I'm glad
men were men and women were women.
Right. When we were saying "Make America Great Again," we're talking about Anton LaVey, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Anton.
It all makes sense now.
Okay.
Well, wasn't Anton LaVey what was his real name like? Wasn't it like Antoine Levy, right? And he changed it, or is it Barney Levy?
Could he really change it from Levi?
Yeah, because he, which is, so born Howard Levy. Yeah.
Lizandro Zavos.
Levy.
Okay, Howard Stanton.
I thought it was Levi. Yeah.
Well, it is though. I
mean, yeah, okay.
Yeah, like it clearly comes from the tribe of Levi, but he wanted
maybe because I just got into this with somebody on Twitter, and I had to like double check this because I was like, I'm sorry guys, I read Marina Abramovic's like her autobiography a while back, and somebody was doing
walk through walls, right?
Full disclosure.
And I went to go see her exhibit in Stockholm and all this stuff. So my feeling, and you guys are welcome to disagree, and I've talked about it on the show before, but I think she's like major troll. I think she's trolling the elite. It's a big fucking joke. She doesn't choose who her fans are. She's like, oh, you want some advice? Put a fish in your vagina. That'll cure your, like and she's just. I think she's
Europe. It's like even more sense. You're like, okay,
right,
you've been through a lot, that much war, you've seen that much trauma, and then people who like it are these like. These Scandinavian trust fund kids from New York City. Okay, yeah, you're gonna.
Yeah, so you're a knowledgeable guy, Andreas. You might know all about this, but like I'm like people were saying like Abramovic. That's a Jewish name, right? And I'm like, it is, son of Abraham. But I was like, I remember this as she was raised super hardcore like Christian growing up. And so like there's even more to it. I can't remember all the particulars, but we're looking at her book. I was like, oh, she's like super Christian. And so that's the thing is that so you have Abramovich and you have Abramovic. And Abramovic is actually a completely different name ultimately in the sense that I think it was like the Crusades, like people went to like the Middle East and like came back and took these like had these surnames that were referencing these other names, but they're technically different. So it's just like, I mean, I can understand people like to gravitate towards like everybody's part of the Jewish elite cabal or whatever they want to say, and that's cool, but like I don't care, and I don't even care if she's Jewish or not. Ultimately, it was just like I'm like making a point, and then it's like people are really attached to Abramovic being a Jewish name, and I'm like, it's not though. It's just not. Right. I'm sorry.
But she wasn't she Orthodox? Like she's not Catholic either, right? So the thing is that supposedly her family were like Muslims that were converted like 200 years earlier or something like that. But she's not Jewish. Yeah, I don't know. People and I think that's funny. Like there really is. It's hard to ignore. Like there is a lot of subconscious, not even subconscious anti-Semitism. It just seems like there's a lot of people that really don't understand Jewishness at all, and so they kind of want to. They're like, well, that would make it a lot easier to understand. But I think with Abramovich, again, with military
Abramovic, right?
Well, is it the Vic? Because
it's got a little dash on the thing on top of this.
On the Vic, it's a Vic. Okay. So Abramovic, then her culture would be just thousands of years of war, and so this is the thing that people forget. It's just the Turks, the Greek Orthodox versus the Catholics, the Islamification, the reserbification, the Slavification of all of this, of what was eventually almost either Italian or Turk, like and so now they're speaking their own Slavic language. There's a lot of suffering that needs to be addressed, and so it's kind of hard to say, okay, I get it, Protestant Midwesterns probably don't need to see her art, but there are a lot of people I think you do. There are a lot of people that are products.
Dude, that was some crazy shit. The first room was all paintings of car crashes because she had been in a car crash and it was like her processing around that. And I go into the next room.
They had she's been through it. That's the reason.
Right. And totally. And you can see that in her autobiography. It's pretty crazy. But then she's got like in going into the exhibit in Stockholm, there's like this big room, second room, and it's just like this vehicle that had like horns on it for like projecting propaganda that they would ride down the street as kind of a statement of like, look how far propaganda has come. So it's like all these really reflective things for the most part there. And then you go into the last room, it was like there's all these screens, little screens of people doing the staring thing. So they're all looking at her, and you're looking at like video footage of all these people like just sitting down to stare with her. It's her thing, right? But then there's like in the center of it, they had this screen that was larger than the others that was like all these children singing this song for the UN, and it was super like satirical and subversive, and like to me it just looked like a giant FU to the UN, like of what it's coming. And she's like directing them to sing, but she's wearing all black and she's got like a skeleton on her back, so she's like death telling the children, you know, whatever. But it was like, what the nature of what it was that she was like, what was actually said, because like I assume she wrote that, and it was just like this, it just felt like this giant middle finger to the UN. And I was like, how come we never see that stuff on the internet? I'm like, I see even in a documentary.
Everyone pushes that we need to have a cleaner, safer times world where this stuff is hidden more. That's the weirdest response to finding out this stuff exists, is that it should all be burned. You have a lot of people that want to burn all this. And I agree. Okay, a lot of people, I see some comments here saying that she creeps them out. And that, agree. People that shouldn't look at that kind of, people shouldn't all watch horror films. But there probably are people that have been through post-traumatic stress that might benefit from this. What scares me is people that have never had any real problems that are drawn to horror films and to gore and things like that. I think that the fact that this exists kind of proliferates that, you know, it gives
sure. That's why a lot of people want to be allies, and why allies tend to cause a lot of the trouble is because people like, and it's this classic thing like that. Like if you go back and you like before the internet, we had like the comic relief thing with like Billy Crystal and like what's her name, Whoopi Goldberg and stuff, and it was like this thing where it's like you want to like speak on behalf of people who can't get their voices heard, like they don't have a platform.
Billy
so
Crystal
we're
17 languages because he grew up. It's just that part of New York City, you know what I mean?
Right. And then like it's like over time though, it's like people want to like represent people that don't even want to be represented by them necessarily. So like you talk about like, you know, somebody's like speaking on somebody else's behalf because they're the disenfranchised, they need their voices heard. And then a lot of the times the shit that they're saying, those generally speaking, like those people are like, don't do that, like I don't want that, like just stop. And no one gets to hear them say that because they don't have.
Oh my God, Balkan fetishists are arguably the worst stands. So there is that too. I think there's so this is something I said the other day about Slavic people. I was like, we're overwhelmingly naive off duty, you know? So when we're reminded that when there's bullet holes in our walls, when there's stigmata, then we can be really, you know, I think our priorities make sense to me then. But when we're in tourist mode and when we're leisurely, then we're as naive, at least, as the Italians, and it's scary because
how many years of Slav are you?
Exactly, right? Exactly.
2 + 3 + 7.
Yeah. Timeless. Yeah. But I mean, this is the truth. Like Slavs are drawn, I think, to remember the suffering, because otherwise you see people they become optimistic and naive, and it's shocking how anyone could just be walking around not afraid, or aware at least that there are things to be afraid of out there or something. And so it's hard to be fully against the existence of vile art that reflects that part of the world.
Well, and I want to just point out that there's a difference to me between the creepy art of Marina Abramovic and then the extra creepy fact that she hangs out with like the Podestas.
That's the thing though, because she attracts these people, and then what is she doing? Like, what is the outcome of what she's doing? This is why I feel like it's another weird kind of psyop, because she's like, oh, you want, like, I don't know what happened, I don't know how it happened, but like, isn't there like a Rothschild or something where she's like posing with this painting of Lucifer or whatever, and you're like, she's like, oh yeah, great idea, let's pose with this painting. Oh, you have this? Like, it feels like she's just like exposing them by getting them to gravitate towards, oh, you find that interesting, do you? Oh, well, let's make this a photo op. Here, Lady Gaga, come check out my, like it just feels
reminds
like it's like,
me of the portrayal of Andy Warhol in Men in Black 3, which I was talking about last night, where he's just like, oh, I'm filming, tell Yoko I'm filming with a pickle and a hamburger. It's beautiful. Yeah, so
right. Yeah, and speaking of Yoko, isn't she like right in line with like that style of like, because that's, I think some people would argue that that's kind of the tragedy of Yoko Ono in a way, is that she had this performance art thing that she was doing where like the people would come up with the scissors and cut it or whatever, like she was on this kind of trajectory, and then she's like turned Beatles singer, and it's like, I think she's really good at that performance art. I actually like her singing. It sounds to me like what ayahuasca feels like. It's very like the depths
her Elvis
of that
Costello duet album,
feminine intensity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yoko's
but I mean,
great.
yeah,
she gets unfairly ragged on.
She's got my birthday.
But I would actually say that she's actually like Marina Abramovic. It seems like she's kind of closer to Jodorowsky in a way, and like it's very like they're both very therapy focused and really just hitting people with like this extreme imagery, and like it, just like they're like adapted to it, like they can just exist in that realm apparently. And some people are like horrified.
The kind of people that really like are upset that Yoko Ono, they're like, oh, she destroyed the Beatles, as if to me that's kind of like just defeating the Nazis. Like they did a good thing,
Well,
like,
yeah, as far as that giant PR projection thing that the Beatles were, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it needs to be destroyed. It was like Beatles are very Bernaysian.
There's so many reasons why the Beatles broke up. It's silly to point to any one thing.
Sure. Yeah,
well,
just
I mean,
time,
I would say because like
inevitability.
Tavistock was moving on to synthesizers. And
what killed
Paul McCartney and the Wings, right? The Wings are really the
sure.
Wings over the world.
The
right?
thing that gets me is that they never got back together. Like they never once like were like, okay, we'll play again. But
so Wings Over the World, Paul McCartney. Okay, let's start with this. Why is it called The Wings? So there's a movie called Things to Come, which is H.G. Wells' movie, and it's all about. It's made in 1933, and it's like takes place right before the war. And it says, let's imagine that we have some sort of all-out world war that leads to a reset. And afterwards, out of Baghdad comes the Freemasonry of science, quote unquote, the wings over the world, right? And the wings over the world essentially are the heroes that are going to bring world peace and unite us by living in subterranean dwellings while the surface of the earth cleans up. And then we're going to go to space. That's the full gist. You got to watch it, but that's what the Things to Come is all about. And so from there, you've got Paul McCartney created his band, The Wings, about that point. Like Paul McCartney. There you go. Because the Wings are simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Like every single song is binaural entrainment using pure sine wave synthesizers. And also real acoustic instruments, but it's some.
Is that why I've never been attracted to Wings? Is that the thing?
Yeah, you have to take certain kinds of crystal aerocyclohexamines in, ketamine. Have you tried ketamine with Wings? Part of orange juice, better breakfast.
No, we talked about this. I've only had ketamine through breast milk.
There you go. That's the issue.
Paul's a dork.
He is a dork.
Real?
Is
he
just
dead?
He just wants to be friends with you.
Do you think that there's anything to like? I mean, obviously Tavistock and the Beatles are so engineered, but do you think that there's a replaced Paul?
I think that's overrated to me. I don't. Maybe I'm emotionally attached to the Beatles or whatever, but like,
I just talked about it on Andy's show.
Created in a lab. Think synchronicity is the thing.
I don't agree with everything I said when I got interviewed by Andy relatively recently about talking about that, but I'm open to some of the things that I said, but like basically like I'm going to stand by that. I had this thing happen where I was exposed to a group of older people who were really like a bunch of people. Some of them were older, but it's like people had gone through like every goddamn photograph in existence, just analyzed it to no end, and it seemed like just about all of those people were not into asserting anymore that Paul McCartney had died. What they were all seemed to be in agreement was that there was at least one double, if not two. And that those changes that occurred were very specific. There are very specific lengths of time in which he looked different in certain ways, and that those differences were completely consistent. Like if those differences all kept on changing, like I wouldn't be so like open to it, and I don't think that they would be either. But it seems like and his story, he got caught lying all over the place. It was like what happened with his chipped tooth, that he was on a moped accident. And he said, I was so distracted by the moon. The moon was just so full. And then you look at the only time in which that could have happened, and it was like a new moon. And you're like, what the hell is it? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
He's a werewolf. I don't know.
Right. It's like, it'd be one thing if he just said the moon happened to be full, but he's like, that was the reason he got in the accident, was he was so distracted by how big the moon was.
Well, there's different ideas. Like, some people say he died on September 11th, 1966, but then other people say it's on November 9th, 1966. But that's also the day that John met Yoko. And it's also 666 times 3 weeks after Kubrick was born.
Right. There's also an extremely strong argument that he actually was in charge of that art show with Yes on the ceiling, and he goes up on the ladder and looks with the magnifying glass and stuff. That was a alias that Paul went by, supposedly, that he used in another song that's like one of the only other songs at the time on like Apple Records that wasn't a Beatles song, and that was the same alias that he used for that he used for this art show and stuff like that. It's like, if you watch The Rotten Apple, you have to if you're a serious person, you have to pause it a lot and look stuff up. It's like, if you want to watch like that Red Ice Hitler apologist thing, it's like, dude, you can't just watch the documentary and walk away feel like you learned something. You have to like check what they're saying bit by bit. And that was one of the ones that seemed to check out, was that Paul McCartney actually put that on, because she went on was it Johnny Carson or one of those, and she said she never heard of the Beatles before she met John. It's like, yeah, sure. You're living under a rock. Okay. Yeah.
You sure that
it's like not hearing of the Sparks
thing, Andreas? If we can finally talk about it.
Oh yeah, I was gonna pull it up. So what is this?
Yeah, so this was just what I noticed about August 18th, which I knew coming up was Polanski's birthday. I always look at August 18th, and then all of a sudden I see R.I.P. Lolita trending. What the hell is that?
No way.
Well, it's Lolita the killer whale that has been like
orca. I believe the word is orca.
Yeah, so then
it's pretty racist that the black whales are killers, but the white sharks are great.
They're white and black. Look to the cookie.
Yin yang. But so I, did the digging and comparing it with Lolita, Sue Lyon, 666 times 2 days, and the midpoint is the day Alec Baldwin shot Helena Hutchins, who's at 42, in the 42 week of the year. Yeah, allegedly. So, but yeah, and I had earlier I put up a version of this which was simpler, and I didn't really have the connection drawn out, but like that the thing in the background is Lolita is from Kubrick's Lolita, where Humbert shoots he's shooting Quilty, but it's symbolized by the image, the painting of him shooting the girl, which is exactly what Alec Baldwin did to Helena Hutchins, allegedly. So this is just an example, I think, of the Crypto K parent thesis structure of reality. That's weird. I don't know.
Lolita, like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Sue Lyon. I mean, Sue Lyon's whole life is very interesting. Her last movie was Alligator, which I just started watching last night. 1980, she has this one scene where she plays a news reporter talking to the alligator hunter, and he's just making all these weird grunting noises at her, and she's very just creeped out by it. But anyway, yeah, 666 days. So that's the sort of thing where I'm like, is this ritual? Are they doing this on purpose, or is this just a natural?
Who was it that turned down Lolita before they gave it to Sue Lyon? Do you know that, Alex? No. There was somebody significant that turned down that role. I can't remember. Whatever. Okay.
Well, Michelle Williams was friends with Lolita or Sue Lyon, okay. Dolores. Yeah. So anyway, that's the thing that interested me: the Helena Hutchins, Alec Baldwin, and Alec Baldwin was in Hunt for Red October. That was the thing that set his career off, basically, which is its own world of synchronicity. Submarine.
I remember
stuff.
I got sent to like a military academy boot camp program thing. And I, was really into Ray Bradbury. And so I'd pretty much memorized Lolita because I was like, this is an important one. They're probably going to take this from me. And just before any program, I just knew.
What about Ray Bradbury?
Well, is that right? Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451.
He did 451. Yeah.
And so you have to burn your books and memorize the books.
Oh, right. I see.
So I remember I got sent to this program, and they have you journal every day. And I'm writing out what I can remember from my favorite books and movies. And they're like, you're supposed to write your own journal. I'm like, well, you can't really make me do anything, and you'll never win. So I did win. But eventually they sent me to a worse program, which was this Utah Provo therapeutic boarding school, where they're supposed to like make you watch time lapses of flowers wilting and growing all day, like and running around, and they're supposed to give you drugs, and then if you're good, you get to wear green on Mondays and become a bagger at the Provo grocery. I got out of that. But the first question is like, well, what about my books? And they're like, well, we have to see your books, decide what books you're allowed to have. You know, I'm like, well, what about like Lolita, for example? Like that would probably be one you're not allowed to have. And I'm like, Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins. My tongue takes a trip 3 syllables down the palate of my tongue. Lolita. I'm like, you guys.
At school, she's Dolores. At home, she's whatever. Yeah.
You probably shouldn't let me into your school, is what I was saying. Paraphrasing.
Right.
You know
Well,
yeah.
Nabokov translated Alice in Wonderland into Russian, right? That was one of his contributions, which is interesting. If you get a Lolita,
you get how that happens. Like, I gotta understand these people. Yeah, pretty weird. I mean, I think it's important. People get so obsessed with ebiphilia, pedophilia, and phantophilia, and they don't know the difference. They don't know what they are, and they're afraid of them. And if you fear the unknown, you can't understand like what is happening. And then there's people that are sympathizing, and they call it map. And so now you've got people that are like, I can't even bother to understand what's going on because it's evil. But then again, the more you understand evil, the more evil you become sometimes. So it's probably better not to understand.
So we shouldn't watch The Sound of Freedom. I don't understand now.
I don't know. I'm gonna ask Andy.
It's all right. You know,
Stefan says, we love you, Stefan. Should one avoid a relative if they have a Hunter Biden painting? Well, it depends. Like, is Hunter Biden being paddled in the painting, or more or less yikes than a stolen artifact sold legally for $100K, asking for a friend? I don't know. I think I want to get like an Epstein t-shirt and a Hunter Biden painting.
Get a Bush painting. You're muted.
Screwed that up. Can you hear me still? Or
now you're back.
All of my art you can see is very old. Like the newest thing I have is a Japanese Ben-Hur Cleopatra poster.
That's the newest.
That's good.
200 years old, basically. I'm not really good at like the modern art kind of thing. I think after they kick Hitler out of art school, it's just, you know, it's hard. It's hard to find a piece I like. Okay.
Didn't John Cusack do that? No, he was trying to help. No, sorry.
God.
What's it? Yeah.
Well, how about some of your stuff? So if you guys go to Paranoid American, you'll find the greatest comic books ever written, the best distributor of literature, of art combined. And you'll get a copy of MK Ultra, maybe 10 copies, so you can give them to your friends, because this pamphlet it's come up on the show tonight. Actually, we talked a bit about some of the stuff that's in here. You
will get this, and you will like it, and you will also get the homunculus pamphlet. And you will also like the homunculus pamphlet.
You will love the homunculus pamphlet. If you need to see it, let me go back a page. It
comes with a great sticker too of what's this? The sticker of is it that? It's not actually the owl god. What is it? What's your sticker?
I don't remember which. I mean, I've got like a bunch of stickers.
And it's an inflatable.
The inflatable Moloch sticker.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. I should know that. I have that in my dining room on the wall. But,
Oh, it is adorable. Yeah, the inflatable.
Well, and you might especially also like Andreas the World's Fair Plaster of Paris kit.
Oh, that's great. Build and smash. That's really cute. Right. That's adorable. Yeah, I mean, basically, the coolest comic books. And as you know, you have already signed up for the Kickstarter, so tell your friends to as well. Make sure that they, and once you've made sure that they sign up, they will receive information. They will get a notification that this has been completed. Thank you for your cooperation.
Now, please put on your Ewan Cameron listening device as you go to sleep tonight. I just want to point out, too, the background of those stickers. That's an original copy of Leo Taxel's Freemasonry and Satanism book. It happens to be in Spanish because I couldn't find one that was in French for like a reasonable price. Dude, but I found this one.
If you're a porch mason and you've got a sedan, get yourself the Worshipful Master pinup sticker, because it can go right on the left passenger side. So when a police officer pulls you over for driving past that stop sign and you want to give him that little handshake, you don't even have to, because he sees this and he knows you paid your dues.
Put it next to that Fraternal Order of Police sticker or the other 3 that you've got.
Oh God, yeah, that's how it works. Okay, so basically you need the stickers, you need the t-shirts. I want you to get the coloring books for your family, because I know you've already gotten the coloring books, but if you get them for your family, then you can help them, because, you know, kids could be doing this one. Like anybody who's in 5th grade on, I'd say is ready for all seeing eye.
Oh, everything we've got here is all ages. And even if you got little toddlers, we've got the Chemtrails children's book, which might sound like a joke, but is 100% real, is 100% serious. And it's backed up by facts, and it's a fun read. It's not like some weird chick track, you know. I mean, some people love chick tracks, but it's something that I will give to your kid.
Yeah,
you will buy this for your kid, and your kid will like it.
Yeah. McDrenochrome, yeah. Yeah. All right. So then also go to Cryptocubrology. Check out the teddy bear. Some of the best work, as you probably noticed this evening, coming from Cryptocubrology. Alex is doing amazing stuff with numbers. And actually, the universe is doing amazing stuff with numbers. But Alex, you notice, and I think the universe appreciates that. So I loved this. We didn't even get to this.
Oh yeah,
Titanic, and they're the same.
Sync poster.
Dude, honestly, we could wax on about Mouse Hunt.
Dude,
maybe next week I gotta watch it.
In Scotts Valley, I remember at the time, the marquee at the theater there, somebody has taken the C from Titanic and put it over in the place of the H for Mouse Hunt, because they were playing both movies. And so, like, I knew this because of that marquee, because I remember it was like Titanic is missing its C, and Mouse Hunt is now something else.
There has to be a sync on Out to Sea, the grumpy old men on the cruise ship, because it's like a solar eclipse and everything. Anyways,
do you remember like the Skyview Drive-In in Santa Cruz, like Highway 1? I remember my mom was driving by in 2000. Dude, Where's My Car was playing. She comes home and she's like, "What's this new movie, Dude, Where's My Cock? I can't believe it."
Oh my god!
Because like someone had fixed the marquee, and I was like, the last
common occurrence.
Good days in the past. David Charles Plate from MK Ultrasound 723. You got to check out his movies. He's putting his sync flicks directly on X.com now, which is pretty sweet. Isn't that cool? Look at this. He got the Charlotte Web.
Yeah, that's my pinned tweet. I yesterday I did the Dark Crystal with Saucer Full of Secrets, and this is me in junior high put this one together with the VHS. Wow. Cool. And so now I've been trying every day I'm at my house. I've been trying to put up another full feature sync film. So check those out.
Awesome. And you can always check them all out by going to thesyncbook.com, clicking on videos, going to SyncFlix, and then there they are. There's tons of them. Here's Poltergeist and E.T. with Mugwai. So you got hundreds of movies. Look at this.
There's over 200 films for free streaming and download of Sync Films.
Faces of Aces. Pretty good stuff here. So make sure you go to David Charles Plate on X.com and look into the brain scanning, because they're going to be able to read your mind and tell you.
Hollow Man.
Is there anything else? Xirtus, you guys know Xirtus. Go to X. Go look for Xirtus, and we love you. We love you very much, and thank you for being here. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye. See you later.
Ciao.